Hello, everybody. It's Thursday night on the Smart Connector group. That's if you're watching live. You may also be watching on my own personal page, or you may be watching the replay on YouTube or the group or
Connector group. That's if you're watching live.
So, welcome. We've got a fantastic guest for you tonight, and I'd like to introduce him straight away. His name's Tom Stanhope. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, Jay. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Now, Tom is a video marketing expert, and I've been so excited to interview him because what's not to like about video marketing, right? We all want to know how to become better video marketers, or at least we do if we want to build a personal brand. So, video marketing is the topic for tonight. We've got a chat feature, so if you'd like to ask Tom any questions, then he's here to answer whatever it is that you want to know about.
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing is, Tom, that you are actually missing out on your cocktail hour, aren't you? Over on your own group to be here tonight.
Well, yes. So in my group on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, I do something called Content and Cocktails. And far be it from me to say it's an excuse for me to sit down and mix a drink and shoot my mouth off on video marketing. But that's, to be honest, if I'm being fair, that's exactly what it is. So I've already sort of done a little live in my group, Grow Your Business with Video, to let people know that I'm going to be here rather than there. So if you see me having a little drink, it's because I've mixed a cheeky drink for myself already. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers, a cheeky cocktail. Unfortunately, I came unprepared, so I don't have a cocktail. But anyway, we'll have to do a replay. I'll have to come.
Yeah, you have to come and join me. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is a gin and it for anybody who is wondering. It's very simple. It's an entry level cocktail.
Oh my God. Actually, talking about cocktails makes me a bit nostalgic. I just love going to cocktail bars in London.
Yes.
And it's just one of the great pleasures, isn't it? To kind of sit down somewhere dark and noisy. And I'm missing that.
It doesn't happen often nowadays, does it?
Oh, yeah, I know. Do you have a favorite cocktail bar?
Well, yeah. So there is one that is particularly a particular favourite of mine, and it's in Budapest, and it is the Four Seasons in Budapest. It's a beautiful hotel, but the cocktail bar there is particularly good.
Wow.
The last time I went there with myself and my wife, we went there. This is years ago. I mean, this is kind of, we've got kids. This kind of thing doesn't happen very much anymore, but it was lovely. It's a beautiful spot, and it's not very busy, but there's a pianist. The cocktails are kind of very good. But also, recently, having moved to Plymouth, of course, we have the Plymouth Gin Distillery, and there is a sort of, it's already hidden, but not many people use it. But they have a fantastic cocktail bar there.
Ooh.
And it's the kind of bar which is staffed by people who really know their drink, and so you can go in and ask for anything off menu, and they'll go, yes sir, of course, and they'll bring you over your cocktail and your snack, appropriate snacks. It's great. I love it. So yeah.
So nice. One of my favorite cocktails is Cahoots in London. Now, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's actually in a disused underground station, and it's all 40s themed. And
Oh wow.
Oh gosh, it's amazing. And it's just so much fun, and you have to have a secret password. You see, you have to turn up and say something like "the captain sent me" or whatever it is. The secret phrase.
I love stuff like that. Yeah.
I know. Oh, it's just so much fun. So, I just want to go back. Really.
I know. It's let's not get started on that, because I think we all want to get back, don't we?
I know. But anyway, we're sitting here having a chat, and we can just pretend that if I had a cocktail, I would
yes,
pretend that I was there.
Yeah, of course. Gosh, it sounds, yes. Good times.
All right then. So let's get on to the topic of video marketing. So tell us, Tom, all about yourself. What's your history? How did you get into being a video marketer?
So my story is one that one, effectively somebody who hid themselves away for many years behind the camera, and then sort of found themselves really desperately needing to get in front of the camera. And the story starts really kind of about 20 years ago. So I did my sort of my training and all my degrees, and I was intending to go and work in the art and antiques world. I had a job lined up down in London. And then I physically realized that the auction house I was going to work for, I physically couldn't afford to live in London and what they were going to pay me. The assumption was that I'd have a trust fund to fall back on. I was like, no, I don't. This may come as a surprise, but I don't have that. They're like, oh well, I guess that's it then. So I sort of had this job lined up. And then realised that I physically couldn't afford, when I was kind of an impoverished, guy in his early 20s. I physically couldn't afford to live in that. So I sort of crossroads, went, okay, what am I going to do now? And I had a chance meeting with a producer up in the West Midlands, because I'm originally from Worcestershire. Mm-hmm. I had a chance meeting with a guy called John Trace, who offered me a job writing TV ideas. I had no background in TV or production. I must confess at the time, I had no interest in it at all. But I found myself doing this job and absolutely loving it. And the first day I was there, I was chucked in at the deep end. And so I was given a camera, and John said, right, you're going up to Nottingham to go and film some interviews with Capital One. I was like, hang on, just to be clear, you do know that I've never held a camera before, and that I've never filmed anybody in an interview. He was like, no, it's fine. Do this, this, and this, and George will go with you. So I was sent up there to go and do this. I was absolutely terrified, but I loved it. I came away at the end of the day, and I went back and I was like, oh, that was amazing. I loved that. And so I sort of came off the back of that job realizing that I'd found something that I loved. But whilst I was there, I did a couple of TV pilots, because at the time, you've got to realize it's kind of we've got people like David Dickinson kind of coming in their first flush at the time, and all that kind of jazz. And so they were wanting somebody to write TV ideas around sort of art and antiques and all that kind of stuff. So I did a couple, and lurking in the vault here, there are 2 VHS cassettes with me doing these pilot episodes. Never to be seen by anybody, because they were all sent out. They went out to all the commissioning editors, and they all came back, and slowly they trickled in one by one. It was like, no, we don't want this. We like the idea, but we don't like Tom, or we don't like, And then the letter came back from Channel 4. This was Channel 4 Daytime's commissioning editor. They said, we love the idea, but we just don't think Tom is TV gold. Crikey, that felt. And that was the moment when I thought, right, my job is going to be to get behind the camera and help other people tell their stories. And that is fine up until the point where you want to become the person up until the point where you want to grow your business more. And as small business owners, we have to be visible, particularly in this age where video and social media and the visual storytelling process is so important. You can't hide away anymore. So I had to sort of come out from behind the camera and fully embrace this idea that I had to be the person in front, telling my story clearly, telling my story well to my ideal audience. And that was a difficult journey.
Well, it doesn't seem difficult. You seem very polished and confident, and I would never get that you were somebody that would have had any problem with that at all.
Well, that is because I have practiced, and I have really taken the medium and worked on it, and it's something that I get asked often around how you take yourself from being somebody who hates being in front of the camera, and we'll get on to some of the ways we talk about ourselves when we look at ourselves on camera in a minute, I'm sure. How we take ourselves from that point of really not being comfortable to being comfortable, but also being able to articulate messages clearly and consistently to the right people. Because that process is not an overnight process, but it doesn't take half as long as people think it's going to take, and it isn't half as scary.
No. I mean, I've had my own experiences with video, my own experiments, I should say,
Yeah.
and I've got a YouTube channel, so I've tried a few different things, and I think I think it is definitely practice, isn't it? That is a lot of it, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, I know I've got a long way to go, but I know that also I've improved a lot just by doing it.
Yeah. I think this is it. I think we all, God, blimey, I've got a huge amount to go. But the way I think of video, you've got four main areas that kind of the four pillars that make up good quality video, sort of, and also the full. If you work on these four areas, you will inevitably come to not only like it, but also to be good at it, but also to use it in a way that puts money on the bottom line. And as business owners, video should be doing one of two things. It should be making us money or saving us time. If it's not doing those two things, what are we bothering with it for?
Yeah.
So the four areas that I like to look at are a mindset.
Mhm.
That's a really important one. Strategy, story, and technology. And those four areas go to make up really all of the ecosystem that you need to understand to make video work, because video is an odd mix of tech and creativity. And you look at any successful video project or TV project, and it's got a real mix of people who are tech experts and creatives. But as business owners, as solo entrepreneurs, we kind of have to be all of that. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be terrifying.
Wow. Well, that sounds really, really interesting, and I can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first topic that you mentioned, which is mindset.
Yeah.
So I know myself that mindset, and I know from talking to other people, is one of the things that holds us all back. And I particularly struggle at times with mindset around live videos. And I talk. I'm actually on Rob Moore's marketing mastermind.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Rob, but anyway, I talked about this at the last session, and I said when those names come up, I just freeze like a rabbit in the headlights, and I just turn into some bumbling, stumbling idiot that can't remember what it is that I wanted to say. And he said, well, you're going to be interviewing me soon, so I hope you don't do that, James. Like, well, that's completely different because the spotlight's on you. It's when I feel the spotlight's on me that I really do struggle. So have you got any tips, any mindset tips for people like me that freeze when they're doing live video?
Absolutely. So the mindset one is a funny one. So this is, I'm going to sort of take a wider look at this. So we've got a lot of people when they come to me at first that they'll use, there are phrases that I hear time and time again, and one of them is, I hate the way I look on video.
Oh yeah.
And it's a funny one, because I ask people, the thing I ask people to do is to just think about it and reframe that thought. Imagine your best friend came to you and said, I've made a video, I want to show it to you, and I want to get your honest opinion. And they show the video to you. You would never in a million years turn around to that person and go, you know what, I really hate the way you look on video. You would never do it. But we do it to ourselves so readily, so easily. And we're so quick to be cruel to ourselves. And that is very much the first step, because being fluent, being confident, and being comfortable in live video starts with being comfortable with the person we're seeing on screen, because there's something interesting that goes on here. So this is we're doing the science bit now. So when we build our self-image of ourselves, we do it through looking in a mirror. Pretty much all of us build an understanding of what we look like through looking in a mirror, and that's a mirror image. Now, obviously, when we see ourselves on the screen, that isn't a mirror image. It's flipped compared to the mirror image. And what that does is, our brains are very good pattern matchers when it comes to faces. We're sort of hardwired to be able to read faces and to kind of get a lot of information from other human faces. So when we see our face reversed on a screen, we know intellectually it's us, but on a subliminal level, we're looking at it going, nah, that's not me. Because it might be. Have you ever had that experience where you see yourself on screen, you go, that doesn't look like me, that's not me, is it? And you go, you know it's you, but on some level you're thinking, that's not what I look like. I can't look like that, can I? I know I've had it.
Yeah, that's just such an interesting point, because if I look at myself on video, I'm almost like looking at a third party. I
We
never
kind
feel
of
as
are.
if it's me.
Yeah.
That's a strange thing, isn't it?
And you kind of are looking at a third party, because there's been some, so that the body of research that comes out of was a psychological study done in the late 70s out of Harvard, I think. And recently some brain scan work has been done around showing people a mirror image and showing themselves a reversed image, and people's brains are reacting in very different ways. So different parts of the brain light up when you're shown different images of yourself in that sort of flipped way. So you have to retrain yourself when you're starting to get to build a kind of a go live mindset or a video creator mindset. You have to rebuild your self-image, and so that it's really, really easy. All you have to do is print out. So do a live, take a screenshot of yourself looking at the camera, and put that up in a few different places, and you'll very quickly rebuild a sense of who you are when you see yourself on the screen. So you very quickly get over this notion of kind of unfamiliarity with yourself. And the reason why that's important is because actually that unfamiliarity with yourself, if you've not quite sort of dealt with that, it can affect your fluency. It can affect your ability to kind of keep that flow going, because part of you is going, because I'm looking down the camera above here, but I can see myself on the screen there. And it's, if I was looking at that and I was thinking, if I wasn't happy with the way I looked, I mean, I know I'm tubby and bald, but I'm okay with that now. I'm okay with that now. But if I wasn't, I'd be distracted by kind of those little thoughts that will pop up whilst you're doing that, going thinking, oh, I don't like the way I look, or, and those can be very derailing. So there's a top level which you have to deal with first, which is the kind of getting comfortable with being on camera.
Yeah.
Just with the concept of being on camera. Then obviously you've got structural stuff. So the way if I'm doing my lives, all I'll do is I will just bullet point out what I'm doing. I mean, I just keep on track by having a little roadmap. So I will say introduction. I will give my vocal business card. I will tell people who I am, what I do. No matter where I am going live, I'll always start with, hi, I'm Tom Stanhope, blah, 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 and give them my sort of 60 seconds, as it were. Then we'll go into the tell them. So I'm going to then tell people what I'm going to tell them and just go through that bullet pointed list. Then I will deliver the content, and that is another bullet pointed list. And then I will sum up what I've said. And then I will give the call to action at the end. So that structure is always there to guide me through the live content that I'm producing.
Yeah.
And it's live. I mean, lives are imperfect, and we've kind of got to be okay with the idea that imperfection is part of live. So the ums and the ers, they're okay. The losing your stream of thought, it happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to people who do it professionally all the time. Yeah. And I think people are very, very okay with the idea that sometimes if you're doing a live, you'll get derailed slightly. A comment will come up, or somebody will come to the door, or whatever. But if you have that structure on paper, you've always got something you can come back to and then get yourself back on track.
Or the dog will start barking outside the door and why come in.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's fascinating, Tom. I really, really like that. And question I wanted to ask you is actually a conversation that we were having beforehand, which is to do with filler words and ums and ahs and those things that happen when we are feeling a bit less than confident, because that's one that I struggle with. And I know what my filler words are, and I really, really hate it if I'm doing a live and then I start feeling a little bit on the back foot, and then I notice that I start using those filler words. So how can people stop themselves, even if they've got a structure for the live, how can they stop themselves from using those filler words?
I think the first thing, we come back to this idea of being comfortable with lives. This is a conversation, but it's a slightly different conversation, because the feedback you get from your audience is sometimes difficult to gauge. And if it's just you going live, this is a conversation, and so we've got each other's facial cues to sort of feed off, and the kind of the conversational back and forth that's just part of this. So filler words will be part of this conversation, but when you're doing it yourself, it can be very easy to lose focus. And when we start to lose focus, we start to inject filler words. And this is going to sound like a stupid tip, but this one works. On your camera, put a couple of googly eyes on the top of the camera. So you can, I will share a picture of my camera. And the reason why you do this, talking to a camera is quite it's a very one-way experience. And as humans, we kind of need these kind of cues in order to give us a bit of something to hang on to, something to sort of build our conversational structure around. So as you can see the nods, and we go, yeah, you get that, you get that flow. But when you're just talking to a camera, it can feel very, very one-sided. Even if you had a huge audience on the other end, you wouldn't know, you're just talking to a camera. So you have to sort of cheat yourself a little bit. And one of the ways I do that is to stick a little pair of eyes on top of my camera. One, it allows you much more easily to maintain eye contact with the camera, because actually, as stupid as it is, we maintain eye contact. We like to maintain eye contact, but we also like to maintain eye contact with things that even vaguely look like eyes. It's weird. So in doing that, you will start to see a reduction in those kind of filler words, but also you will find it just straight up a more enjoyable experience. It's a really, really simple hack, and people go, no, that's not going to work. That's stupid. And it is a bit stupid, to be honest, but give it a try. Put some little eyes on top of your camera, and you will maintain eye contact with your lens and your audience rather than kind of looking off all over the place. And it's much easier to keep that focus.
What kind of eyes? Do you mean like a picture of some eyes? Or
Well, give me a second, and I'll message you this, and then you can share it. You can share it to the group, because it is as stupid as it sounds. Let me just give me 1 second, and I will share this with you. So the other thing that I need to take a photograph of my. It's not. Oh.
You're taking a photograph of your glasses.
I'm taking a photograph of my. I'll share it with you afterwards, but basically, you know, the little googly eyes, the little kind of stick-on eyes. I just put those at the top of just on the top of my lens. So it makes it much easier to maintain eye contact with your camera. The other thing I like to do is we get rid of these filler words by practicing, and create yourself a Facebook group of which you are the only member, and then just practice going live in that. So you can. I use it to test my tech. So I've got a group. It's called Tom's Live Group or something like that. So I set this up. I am the only member. Nobody else can join it. Nobody else can see it. So everything I do in there is purely about testing and practicing.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea.
So yeah, first one's a daft one, but works. Second one makes a bit more sense, but also works. So take your pick.
Yeah. The thing about live TV is about going live on Facebook, for example, is that you don't have to go live to everybody. You can actually just go live to yourself, can't you? There is a setting on the Facebook.
Yeah.
So you can practice that way. It's just a rather pointless experience, I've always found. I've tried it a few times as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I like that life to myself. I'm sure I think I've got better things to do.
it's I think for me, I found that a useful experience because when I started going live, I was fretful about the tech. I was worried that the technology would let me down. And so if I was thinking about that, then you start to find yourself losing your thread. You start to find yourself wondering, oh God, is the camera going to die on me? Is the microphone working? Can people hear me? All of that kind of stuff. But if you've got all that tested and tried out, then, it's one thing off your plate. And the fewer things we worry about, the more fluent we are.
I think the other thing that a lot of people struggle with is actually just finding the right content and the right things to say, because we don't want to give away everything, or do we? That's the question, really. So, are you in the camp that says just give it all away, as much free content as possible, give away all your best ideas because people buy people? And if they like your ideas, then they'll choose you, regardless of the ideas. Or are you in the camp that says, just tease them, just let them get to know you, but keep all your best stuff for your paying clients,
Yeah.
for example?
Well, I'm a great believer that you give it away, because the reality is nothing that anybody, it's all available for free anyway. If people wanted to, you could go onto YouTube, go onto the internet, you can find all this information out if you want to. But my role is as an aggregator of all of this information, and then a communicator. So people work with me because, one, I know my stuff really well. Two, I have done a lot of work around audience, so the people who are kind of attracted, who are attracted to me because the things I'm talking about are the kind of people I like to work with. So generally speaking, the audience work we've done has kind of created a natural rapport with people, because I could give away everything I have, and I frequently do. I will quite, on my content and cocktails. If you watched over the last year's content and cocktails, quite apart from having serious concerns about my liver health, you would have there is a huge amount of information. In fact, on the brief live I did beforehand, I had some really lovely comments from somebody who's been a long time viewer of content and cocktails on a Thursday, who said, I'm now doing weekly lives, and Restream, who is the restreaming service that he uses, have just come to him and said, we want to sponsor you because we love your the lives you're doing so much. And Scott was saying that's because I've tuned in and I've put into action. Scott's, we not work together, but he's gained benefit from it, and it's all there, and that makes me so happy, because I know there's somebody out there who I've helped take their business on, but there are plenty of people who pay me to do that as well. So actually, if you have the time and the energy and the inclination, all this information is out there. So I'm a great believer in oversharing, as it were. Because you can't guard the information. The information is out there. It's not secret, but it's about how you communicate it.
And how you package and curate it, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Wow. That's great. So Tom, what were the other areas? So you talked about mindset. What were the other 3 pillars?
We've got strategy, technology, and story. And I would say that the kind of the other, so the technology one is kind of is one that people get quite hung up about, but actually is one of the simplest ones to solve. That really is just an understanding of, it's the how to, it's the nuts and bolts. How do you use the camera? How do you edit? How do you upload? All that kind of stuff. And actually, once you take people through that step by step, those fears go away. And people often get quite hung up about which bits of kit they should use, because you can get into that place where you think, oh God, there's any amount of information out there about which bits of kit you should use. But the reality is, use the stuff that you're going to use, the stuff that works, and use the stuff you feel happy using. Because if you're not happy using it, it will get in the way of content creation.
I mean, my little forays have shown me that there are different ways of doing things, and that it's all about finding the way that works for you.
Yeah.
And I've tried one way, which I'm quite happy with, which was with my assistant Dan.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to. I've got Camtasia because I've got some courses that I want to record.
Yeah.
I'm going to use Camtasia, and I'm going to record and edit on Camtasia.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I've been one of those people, and I'm sure that some of our viewers and listeners are the same, that we don't think of ourselves as technical people. I don't think of myself as a technical person. And I think sometimes as women as well, we tend to be perhaps less technically orientated, being very general about it, obviously, because everything's different. But being a bit older, being female or whatever, it's we don't necessarily take to tech like ducks to water. But I've actually realized recently that, you know what, I absolutely have to get my head around this. And if it takes me 10 times as long as some kind of young whiz kid, tech guy who's been doing it since birth, then so be it. I just, can't do anything else. Would you say that that's the right attitude, or should I be using somebody else to do it for me?
Look, it comes down to two things. Either you've got, do you have the time, or do you have the money? And
Yeah.
sometimes you can have both the time and the money,
Mm-hmm.
or you can have the money but also actually just want to get your head around it. But I would say to people, it's absolutely worth investing time in learning how to do this, because actually in understanding it, you will be a better content creator. Even if you do learn how to do it and then hand it over to somebody else, you are already going to have a shared language. You are going to be able to articulate much more clearly what you want from your editor or your film, or you're the person, your videographer, whoever you're getting into to create that content. If you've got that sort of baseline understanding of kind of the sort of the rules of what you want, because actually there's some people who are doing it professionally who really don't know very much, but they know more than the next person in the room, so they've got just enough. And if you can have an understanding, you can possibly spot the people who are good at it and aren't so good at it, and find the right people for the task. So yes, I would say invest time. It doesn't have to be vast quantities of time. If you put aside maybe 2 or 3 days, you could actually really, really significantly get to grips with a lot of the sort of the kind of the baseline information. One of the things I say to people, if they're looking with for video content, is take the view that you are going to create 5 videos that never see the light of day. 5 videos, start to finish. You film them, you edit them, you upload them, and then you delete them, or you put them somewhere else, or you turn them private. But they are never designed to be shown to people. They are designed as a learning exercise. They're designed as a process to help you really grapple with some of the technical problems. Because actually, God, I remember the first time I opened an editing platform, I looked at it and went, what's going on here? It can look completely overwhelming. I don't know if you've got any experience with editing stuff. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, so I've actually, Dan, who is helping me with podcast, he has been doing my editing for me. So he uses iMovie, I believe.
Yeah.
So up until now, he's done all the editing for me. And then I realized myself that the volume of content that I want to create going forward, if I used him for everything, I would be spending an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
And so there is really, at that point, it was like, well, okay, I can go and get a video editor from the Philippines or something, where you pay a lot less. And, I'm still figuring it out for myself, because I want to really scale up on YouTube, and I want to do some, fancy kind of videos.
Yeah.
And then I want to do, obviously, the training videos, which are going to be much more functional. And I can probably manage to edit them, though, those ones myself on Camtasia. But I think I'm a very, very I'm very keen on systems. I love systems, and I think a system is systems are king for me. So I think, as I said, it's my journey is just started really. But the one thing that I have learned is that different environments require different approaches really, and it's all about having the right system for the right environment, and you're going to be a lot more of an expert than me on that because you've been doing it for a long time. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. What's the difference between if you were doing a training piece of training video, for example, or you doing like a flagship piece for YouTube, or a video sales letter, what would be the difference for you?
Good video content succeeds in the planning process. So you'll be unsurprised to learn that sort of the pre-production process is where all of the kind of the magic happens. You know, if your pre-production process is robust and designed to deliver the right results, you are going to find that the filming and the editing and everything after flows very easily. So with every project that we do, so when we're working for, you know, when we get people come to us and say, we would like you to make some video content, the first thing we do is we sit down and we effectively map the whole thing out on paper. So we will sit down with the client. In this situation at the moment, it's on Zoom. It's all on Zoom, which is fine, but sometimes it's nice to get face to face. But if you can be very clear about your audience, your story, your desired results, you can then construct a project in the pre-production phase that is going to meet those goals. So being very clear about your goals for every piece of content you create is crucial, and having a structure that you follow is so we've got a process that we've sort of developed over 20 odd years of production, which is by no means unique, but we've just put all the pieces together in a way that I find works and I find delivers good results for clients. So that structure takes people through a stage of audience identification. It takes them through a process of understanding their story, the story that underpins the content.
Yeah.
We then look at their kind of sales or marketing funnel and work out where the content fits in that process. And then once we've done that kind of preliminary work, that understanding work, only then do we get to script writing or storyboarding, because actually from that understanding comes a much clearer sense of how you achieve the goals that the client wants. And everybody should be treating themselves like their own clients. You know, when you're creating your video content, think about your audience, think about how you're going to be serving the audience with the content you're creating, but also think about it think of it as though you were an independent producer who'd been brought in to work with you. What would you want? What do you need? You know, what would you like to see? So process is hugely important, and it's one of those things, you know, ignore it at your peril.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's like anything, really, isn't it? I mean, you wouldn't start building a house without foundations and without a plan, would you? So it's just the same, really.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get on to talking about story, because that's a big one, isn't it? We all love stories, don't we?
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, this is the bit that I love. So I'm a big fan of kind of helping businesses get to grips with their story. We are storytelling apes. We are. There is something about the way our brains are put together where we understand the world through story.
Yeah.
We make sense of landscape. We make sense of our place within that landscape through narrative. You know, you don't sort of see I'm trying to get at here, the earliest art is all about story. You'll see cave paintings, and it's about things that happen. It's about the hunt. We haven't changed that much. The technology has changed, but the story need is the same. We want to see ourselves on a journey. So when I get people to think about the story, we go for a classic story structure, the hero's journey. But we the provider of the service or the provider of the product, we are not the heroes in the story. Our prospective customer is the hero in the story. So we need to position ourselves as part of their story. But the thing we need to position ourselves is as the wise advisor. We are the Merlin, we are the Athena in this story. We are there to help the hero on their journey. And it sounds crazy, but actually, once you start to sort of think about your relationship with your potential customer in those terms, you really start to get to grips with, I guess, things like what's the hero trying to achieve? What's the hero's mission? So once you understand what their mission is, the customer's mission is, and what their pains are, you can then structure your marketing stories to speak directly to those pains, those needs, those desires, that will help people get a handle on what you can offer them much more easily. Because if you can present it in a story form, and it doesn't have to be all told in one go. On this, you can tell different parts of the story at different parts of your sales journey. So it's quite a compelling thing to sort of draw people along the process with a story. Be a storyteller with your video content. Take people on a journey.
I really love that. And it's because I've noticed, being analytical about other people's videos, because I always look at them and I think, what do I like about this? Or what do I keep coming back to this person? And why do I decide not to come back to this person? And I figured out that a lot of it is because the people that I come back to are not talking about themselves. So people I get a bit tired of, or it's not that I'm tired of them, but it's just that their videos have less resonance to me. It's because they're talking about themselves and they're like, I started out the day doing this, and then I did this, and then I found this, and this is my history, and it's all about I and me. Whereas people who are, I would say, experts at this, and we've all seen them if we go on Facebook, which of course most people are, they won't talk about themselves. They'll talk about you, and they'll talk about always in terms of their customers and what their customers or what their audience are preoccupied with. And so it makes them come across as just more compelling.
Yeah.
Would you say that's your experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's about balance. I think the reality is part of this increased desire for visibility is a little bit about crafting a personal narrative that people can connect with. So you have got to, I think the 80-20 principle works here. 80% of the time, talk about your customer. 20% of the time, tell them a little bit about you. Because actually, if it's a very personal business, a personal connection you're looking to build, then you've got to give a little bit. And we're not talking sort of, crazy oversharing or whatever. You tell as much of your story as you want to, but relate that story to your audience. So it doesn't have to be all about, we, I do this, I do that. If you can make your story relevant to the people, your audience, your ideal audience, then it becomes less about you and it becomes more about them understanding you within their own context. So I think kind of having a very clear understanding of your sort of business stories and the personal stories, and crafting those so that you can keep coming back to them in ways that are relevant to your audience. So I think that is where as content creators, we can be deploying our personal stories in a way that is resonant and valuable to an audience without it feeling like it's just somebody turning up telling you how brilliant they are, or like you say, kind of, hello everybody, I'm brilliant and I had a really good day today. It's like, well, bully for you. I'm really pleased about that.
Yeah,
So, but come on. Yeah, I don't care. So we don't care. We want to know how we can be helped. Tell us how marvelous we are. That's what we want as an audience.
Yeah. I actually, one of the people that I'm working with at the moment, he says, you've always got to remember that online you're talking to people with the mentality of a drunk teenager. Great. Yeah.
Very true. Yes.
So make it go off, start waffling, and you've lost them. Say something dull, and you've lost them.
Yeah.
It's all about grabbing their attention. And in that respect, I do find it interesting when people talk about themselves in a way that, just like in ordinary conversation, they're actually revealing something quite intimate about themselves. A little kind of detail that is quite personal. It's the sort of detail that you would share
Yeah.
with a friend. And
Yes.
that when people use that vulnerability, I find it very endearing. And I think what it is it's just like, people in real life. We were sitting down to have a chat with somebody, and they were saying, "Do you know what? I had this coffee this morning, and it was I got it from Starbucks, and it was tepid. When I opened the lid, it was like I've never had a cup of coffee like this before." It'd be like, well, it's not really that interesting, but it's amazing how many people actually do live videos and talk about the minutiae of their
Yeah.
boring day. Whereas if they were saying, actually, you know what, I really have been struggling lately with a feeling of just tedium and isolation and being cooped up, and I'm missing my old life, and some of the things that we're all feeling, then immediately you kind of get captivated and think, you know what, me too. And then you start to listen. So I find that, I find it's all
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's about balance. I think it's about a rich and varied diet.
Okay.
If all we were ever doing was turning up and saying, sort of, and if it was all very intense, I think it can be quite exhausting. But if as sort of broadcasters, which effectively we all are, if as broadcasters we sort of view our kind of the flow of the way we're communicating as a journey of peaks and troughs. Some days are going to be more intense than others, and other days can be a little bit more laid back. You can be talking about those kind of more inconsequential community sort of conversations you have. But there are those days when you do want to articulate how you're feeling. And I think in those moments of kind of vulnerability and connection, you can actually move and it sounds incredibly cynical, but you can move your relationship with your audience on in quite significant ways. And I don't want that to sound as cynical as it is, because you can't be cynical about this. I think you have to be genuine. So, which is why work done around identifying your audience and who the people are you want to talk to is so important, because actually if you are communicating in a way that feels a little bit forced or fake, people are going to smell it a mile off. But if you've done the work around your audience, this isn't going to feel, it's going to feel like a normal conversation, the kind of conversation you'd willingly have with a friend.
Yeah, and that's quite magical, isn't it?
Mm.
Learn these skills, or some of us have learned these skills when we can't sit down and have, like you and I, we couldn't kind of sit down very easily. I mean, you're in Plymouth anyway, I'm in
Yeah.
Whitworth,
Yeah.
but it's much harder to achieve that intimacy, if you like, through
Yeah.
screens. And so we've kind of learned ways of doing that, really, haven't we? Or some of us have.
Yeah.
There's always progress to be made, isn't there?
Yes, and this is, I mean, the reality is, I think about where we are as business owners and the tools we have available to us for video compared to 20 years ago. And it's almost unimaginable, the ability to go live just in seconds to a large audience of people and talk to that audience in a way that is direct, that is kind of relevant, and is kind of about connection, compared to there wasn't a tool for it other than live TV, which you wouldn't have been able to do it. It would have been ridiculously expensive, and frankly wouldn't have done the job you wanted it to do anyway. But this is astonishing, and actually I think, kind of, as somebody who kind of, I guess, grew up on that point where the internet became, I talk to my nieces and it's like they can't imagine a world without it. But I'm at that age where I clearly remember the before and I clearly remember the after, and I remember that bit in the middle where I was going, this is crazy. and looking at it going, the opportunity, I was really like, the amount of opportunities, I guess, that I've missed over the years as a result of not quite seeing what it is. But now, we've all got this. We've got amazing devices in our pockets which can turn us all into video stars. And it's this idea of, I can't remember who wrote the book, 1,000 Raving Fans or whatever it was, but that idea that we develop a tight but incredibly loyal audience, people that we love communicating with, and the people that love hearing from us. Yeah. And that 1,000 people, that's all you ever need. Yeah. If you've got 1,000 people who love what you've got, that is a very, very solid business right there.
Yeah. So we've talked about technology, we've talked about the story, we've talked about mindset. What's the final pillar?
Well, we've sort of talked about the strategy as well. The strategy is where you are very, very clear about who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, but then also create. I mean, the way I like to get people to think about it is to think thematically. So think over a 6-month period. Think about the next 6 months in your business and think, what are the conversations I would like to be driving week on week, month on month? And then organize your content thematically and have that conversation. Create content that drives the conversations you want to have. So, for example, I'm doing some consultancy work at the moment for an international tech firm, and they're getting a lot of traction in the Philippines, but they are wanting to drive conversations around quality at the moment, because then their competitors in the region, the quality isn't great. So if they can get the conversation onto topics of quality, they can then have those conversations which get their potential customers thinking, actually, I'm not very happy with the quality of my competitors' products. But that conversation takes a few weeks. It's going to take weeks of kind of concerted effort to get enough touches and to get enough cut through. So we've sort of structured up a whole raft of video content that we're creating for this audience, for this region, that is going to be put out, which will drive the conversation and help the customers that they want to work with understand that they need to be thinking a bit more precisely about tech quality. So if you can think about the conversations you want to drive in a sort of strategic way, you can then put the tactics in place and the content in place to make sure those conversations happen. But you've got to think about it in terms of months rather than just kind of week on week on week. Have a big plan. Have a big plan, and you're having, as we all know, if you've got a big plan and goals, you're more likely to reach them. You're more likely to execute on it properly.
Yeah, that's right. So it does help, doesn't it, if you have other people along the ride?
Yeah.
So,
and find some accountability partners as well. Have people who are going to kick your bum if you fall off the wagon.
Yeah. So how do you have an accountability partner for businesses, or work with mentors, or how do you keep yourself accountable?
Well, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I run my business with my wife, and although she took a sabbatical this time last year and said, I'm going to go and just do a nice, simple, straightforward NHS comms job. And then, of course, coronavirus hit. It's like anything but. So yeah. She's still with the NHS and sort of really still in the thick of everything to do with that, because it didn't seem like the right time to leave. But we are each other's accountability partners.
Yeah.
So that's important. But also, I think, you can pay for it. I think that's something that some people like. They like that. They like the transactional nature. They go, I've given somebody some money, and in exchange, you are going to keep me on track. For some people, that works really well. And other people, they actually just need a sort of, it's the stick or the carrot, isn't it? You know, find ways that you can build content creation accountability into your life. And in fact, it's something we do in my group, Grow Your Business with Video. We have accountability threads and sort of holding people to the challenges they've set for themselves and saying, you know, are you doing it? How is it going? Share it with us and we'll critique it, give you some feedback. Because actually it's a journey. And once you can help people understand that it is a journey and that there are going to be mistakes along the way and that you will not be producing perfect content from the get-go, it becomes a lot easier and it becomes a lot less stressful. But,
amazing. You know, it's been such an interesting chat that we've had tonight, Tom. I just wanted to really thank you for.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
It's been great, and thank you for anybody that's listening. We haven't had many comments tonight. I think probably people are just they're just listening and absorbing it and taking it all in. And we often get a lot of views on replay as well. So if they're not here tonight,
any questions?
They'll be watching it either on the group or on YouTube. So anyway, thanks very much, Tom. It's been lovely to speak to you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye.